Hey everybody, it's Daniel and Guy again, Pharaoh Staub at Keller Williams. Today we want to talk about appraisals.
Yes.
Get a lot of questions about what is an appraisal, why is it required, what happens if it comes in low, high, at value. So we wanted to talk about that a little bit. Guy's going to get into what happens when an appraisal comes in low. Before that, I want to give you a little context as to what it is and why it's required. So there's a certification that people get, just like people become real estate agents or people become home inspectors, they can become appraisers. And their job is only to give a definitive estimate of value that carries more weight than a real estate agent's estimate of value.
Yeah, their reports are, 10 pages long.
Right. And they sketch the house to make sure the square footage is right.
Yeah.
So the reason that they are required whenever you get a loan on a piece of property is because the bank wants to make sure you're not overpaying. Because they have a whole lot more skin in the game than you do, especially if you only put down 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and we'll get into this, but even the less you put down.
Yeah, the less money you put down, the more stringent or red tape an appraisal is going to have.
Right. The appraisal is going to be more involved because the more a bank has more interest in it than you, the bigger that delta between your interest and theirs is, the more intense they're going to be about the appraisal.
Yeah, because they're assuming when you're not putting a lot down, their assumption is you don't have a lot of cash.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if there are things wrong with this house, we may need, if you're going to foreclose on this thing, it needs to be in a condition that we can sell it in.
Right. So anyways, anytime you get a loan, they're going to require an appraisal. It normally happens after the home inspection. There's a couple other ways an appraisal could happen. You could always just call an appraiser, pay him $400 or $500, and have them do an appraisal on your house, just to get an idea of what it's worth. I actually love that. I would love it if everyone did that.
What's funny is the appraisal, which is such an important part of the process, is done 14 days in. Supposed to be even further.
Yeah.
It's like it's like whoever thought of this and put it in the contract is like, how much suspense can we build?
I know.
It should be done first. It really
first.
should.
Yeah, and it's not, and there's a bunch of reasons why it's not, but I'll say this, if I'm at a listing appointment and I cannot come to an agreement with the seller on what this property is worth, sometimes I'll get an appraisal done.
Yeah.
And, depending on the price of the house, sometimes that makes sense for me to do that. And sometimes I've been low, sometimes I've been high. But it just carries more weight than my opinion. And it certainly carries more weight than a civilian opinion.
Yeah, no, they're good to have. I think I think they're nice to do on the front end, whether the client does it before they call the real estate agent or whether the real estate agent and the client do it together.
Yeah. Okay, so you could always just call somebody for an a la carte, appraisal. If you get a refi, if you refinance your house, which is not a bad idea right now with interest rates where they are, you're going to have to get an appraisal. But most of the time, appraisals happen when you're under contract. So, Guy, let's say that the house is under contract for $300.
Okay.
And the appraisal comes in at $290, and you have the buyers, and I have the sellers.
Thankfully, I've got the buyers.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's the next step?
So, an appraisal comes in low. Basically, you're renegotiating. You're going to the sellers and you're saying, look, I know that we agreed on $300. This appraisal came in at $290, and now the bank is only if you're getting, let's just say for easy purposes, you're getting a 100% loan. You're not putting anything down. The bank's only going to give you $290. If you're doing an 80-20 loan, the bank's only going to give you 80% of $290.
Yeah.
So, and that's cut and dry. They're not budging on that, and appraisers will never change their opinion. Once that they've got it, you can't really have rebuttals or go back to them and ask them to change their values. In theory, yes. Yeah. They're very proud of their values. So appraisal comes in low. You go to the sellers and you say, look, appraisal's $290. And from a buyer's agent perspective and from representing a buyer, you're you basically are kind of throwing your hands up saying, this is the value of your home. You need to come down to 290.
You need to lower the price.
Now,
I've got the seller.
yeah.
So then I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to say, well, we just think it was a bad appraisal.
Yes. First, he's going to review the appraisal.
Yes.
And make sure that he actually thinks that.
Right. Of course.
Yes, of course.
And then I'm going to say I think that was a bad appraisal. And I just think that maybe you guys can bring a little more cash.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can meet in the middle and have a happy compromise.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens if it truly is a bad appraisal.
Yeah. And there's been times when I'm on a buyer side, and I'm sure you've done the same, where you pull up that appraisal and you're looking at the comps and you truly do not agree with it.
Yeah.
And you're saying, no, I don't think, he used the best comps.
Yeah.
He or she. So that can happen. Now, if I'm looking at the appraisal and I'm like telling my buyer, hey, Daniel's representing the seller here. I think these comps are fine. Daniel's trying to get us to meet in the middle at 295. Basically, we're kind of acting this out, but what it comes down to is you either meet in the middle somewhere, which means if you're a buyer, you're going to be bringing extra cash.
Right.
The seller either comes all the way down and meets you at the appraised value,
290,
or the contract gets terminated. Nobody, the seller is dead set on that was a really bad appraisal. I don't agree with it. The buyer's like, I'm not budging. Well, Daniel's not budging. And then so, everyone goes their separate way.
Yeah. But then the problem for that from my seller client's perspective is, well, now we got to sell the house again and we got to hope for a better appraisal, or we've just wasted a month, 2 months.
And if it's FHA.
If it's FHA or VA, which are government issued loan types, that appraisal sticks with the property for 6 months.
6 months?
6 months.
Oh, okay.
Or is it 4 months?
I thought it was 60 days.
We'll get back to you, but either way, it sticks with it.
Yeah.
And the point is that you then can't take that loan type again because they're just going to use the same appraisal.
Yeah. But if it's conventional, a seller can easily say, we'll sell it again. We'll find an appraiser that gives us our value. But do you want to go through another home inspection? Do you want to go back on the market and have that kind of eyesore of going back on the market?
We're probably running out of time. Do want to touch on a couple other things real quick. What are we at, 11 minutes?
We're almost to 10.
Okay. So there are certain appraisals where the appraiser actually does a mini inspection and may require some repairs. FHA loans are notorious for that. Some VA loans and some low money down conventionals actually will require some stuff. It
goes back to, if you're not putting a lot of cash down, the bank cares more about the condition of the home because they have to take the perspective of, we might own this.
Yeah. So there are inspections, little mini inspections that happen with appraisals. The house has to be, something's got to be pretty obviously wrong for them to actually.
Safety concerns is normally what they look for.
Yeah.
Broken windows, roofs that are reaching their term,
like roofs
20.
that are very obviously old.
Yes.
Handrails. Water standing in the crawl space.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're running a little long, so that was what you need to know about appraisals. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.